Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic for you today. Let's do it. What was the survival tip that could save your life? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. If you're sick, injured, or just gone through a medical event, if you get that feeling of impending doom or something just doesn't feel right, do not ignore it. I had this happen to me after I had just had my second baby. I was brushed off by the nurses, but the doom feeling didn't go away, and I could feel myself bleeding too much. I physically felt weaker and cold. I looked at my husband and told him I was going to die. I ended up coding shortly after because I had severe postpartum hemorrhaging that they missed. They brought me back, but I had to undergo several blood transfusions, be put on medicine for the bleeding, and have the bleeding and clots past closely monitored. Used to work in the fire service. Maybe not a glamorous tip, but a lot of people were saved by bystanders knowing basic first aid and CPR. In a rural place, we were arriving to a scene 30 plus minutes after they stopped breathing. 30 minutes without new oxygen or circulation makes a massive difference in survival odds. And for traumatic injuries, making an attempt to manage blood loss is always better than nothing. Drowning. I saved my son from drowning in a pool. He had swallowed so much water that he couldn't breathe. I put him on his back, rolled him to his side, and hit him on the back. He ended up throwing up numerous times. His first words to me were, "Thanks for saving me, Dad." I still get choked up 15 years later. Saved my mother's life. Go learn the Heimlich maneuver. You don't need to be fully trained, but it is definitely better if you are. But at the very least, make sure you understand every part of how it works, because panic will set in the moment. She started choking on a piece of steak at a restaurant, fully blocked airway. I did the Heimlich and got it out while cracking a rib in the process. That shit's terrifying through and through, especially on family. Woke up around 1 a.m. and went to use the bathroom. Started sweating profusely from what felt like every pore in my body. Then started feeling like I had to throw up. Individually, they were concerning. Together, they were not good. Woke my wife up and said I need to get to the ER like right now. Got there, told him what was going on, and sent straight into a room. Wife was let in a few minutes later, and we were told I was in the midst of a heart attack. Asked my cardiologist a few days later what would have happened if I just tried to sleep it off and see how I felt in the morning. He said you wouldn't have woken up. Let someone know where you're going and when you plan to return. Always remain calm. I got lost in a snowy moorland once. I was alone, hadn't told anyone where I was going, had no phone signal, and the afternoon was starting to draw in. I knew which direction to go, but I was worried it'd go dark before I got to civilization. In a panic, I started running, trying to navigate rough and snowy terrain. Thankfully, something clicked, and I just stopped for a second, gathered my senses, and continued to plod on at a sensible speed. I'm still here, more wise, able to tell the tale. Not really a survival tip, but do not swerve for deer in the road. I was coming home from college late one Friday, like 1 a.m., on a road bordering a state park. As I'm tooling along, a deer jumps out in front of me. I hit the brakes, but still hit the deer, which goes tumbling off into the dark. I limp up to the next point I could pull off and look. No real damage, just a dent in the hood and some blood. Come Sunday, I'm heading back to school along the same route in daylight and get to the spot I hit the deer and realize that the road is running along a ridgeline which slopes down, going about 75 feet on each side. So if I had swerved for the deer and gone off the road, there's a non-zero chance I'd have been down that bank and invisible from the road if I was incapacitated. Moral of the story, don't swerve for deer or animals that weigh less than your car. Buddy of mine was put into a coma when he was in the chicken lane trying to turn left. He had his wheels already turned in anticipation for his window when a car slammed into his rear and lunging his car forward and turned into oncoming traffic, resulting in a head-on collision with a car going 45 miles per hour. I took his trial as a cautionary tale and always kept my wheels straight when waiting for my turn in a chicken lane. A couple of years ago, I got rear-ended in the exact same manner as he did, but I was able to come to a safe stop in the same lane just a few yards forward and didn't have a collision. His near-death experience saved my life, and I still think about him every time I'm waiting to turn. My Guido grandfather was a jovial man. He was short, a Ukrainian-Canadian immigrant, a World War II RCAF vet, bald since he was 30 with a comb-over, and a retired railroadman who grew vegetables and roses. Nothing really bothered him. But we were getting ice cream when I was 12, and I was an overgrown kid, but some guy in his 30s tried to flirt with me and squeezed my butt. My Guido, who was shorter than me, with a grandpa gut, squared up on this tall, muscular man and growled out a threat I don't remember, because I jumped and backed up when the guy touched me. But something about that silent generation, cold fury, made this dude beat retreat. He turned back to me, gently took my hand, and we went back to the ice cream window and ordered. I could feel the heat leaving his body. I didn't even feel that upset. The guy had touched me and scared me a bit, but I never felt unsafe because I had always felt protected because I was with him. He had always been there to catch my falls and pull me back from danger. I told him that. But he said, I won't always be there. You're going to go to high school and university and go off with your friends, and sometimes you'll end up alone. What you have to do is be scarier than them. I learned that in the war. If we ever came across a Jerry and the boys, we were supposed to act crazy like rabid dogs and start shooting. The bullets don't scare them, but you put the two together and they panic, and you can get them in the back. When I was 20, before cell phones, I was walking home alone, 3 beers and some magic mushrooms deep. Guido had been dead for a year after a massive stroke, but a man following me had just made it on my radar. So I turned right. He followed me. I turned right again. He followed me. And I remember Guido telling me if I saw Jerry. So I turned around and started howling like a trapped dog, just screaming and owing and thrashing in the air. He stopped. I screamed, You son of a... Aww. I flailed some more. I acted like a feral werewolf in a movie. I knew it was partly the mushrooms and beer uninhibiting me, and Guido's rage in my veins. And the guy turned around and started walking, then jogging, as I screamed and spat. When I was sure he was gone, I ran home in my heels. If you see Jerry. Knew nothing about it, so took a scuba diving certification class during grad school. I was paired with a strangely nervous guy. The rest were couples. He had to retake the pool test a few times. On the first open water dive day, we swam out in pairs as a group with wetsuits, flippers, and maybe BC and weight belt. Halfway out, and in mild surf, my designated dive buddy had a full panic nutty after swallowing some water and tried to climb on top of me. Had long ago been a Boy Scout and took the lifeguard merit badge where they described this exact scenario and what to do. I gulped air, dove down so he'd let go of me, and swam up behind his panicked ass, put him in a light headlock as I recalled talking for that ancient merit badge test, and swam us both into shore like that. The dive master was apologetic, screaming at us, swimming away from the rest of his group, and turned everyone around and brought the entire group back to shore. He was pissed until he understood what had happened. They expelled him, and the dive master was my diving buddy for the rest of the sessions and final dive with full gear. Knowing how to tie knots literally saved my life. Know how to tie a munter hitch and carry a climbing carabiner while backpacking. I was camping in winter, slipped on some ice and slid several meters on an ice sheet, all the way to the side of a cliff. My pack caught on a root of something with my legs over the edge. The way the back up was sheer ice and not possible to go up, as I didn't have crampons accessible to climb an ice sheet, even if I was in a position to turn around and get oriented to go up. There was no choice but down. The fall would have only been about 6 meters. While the impact wouldn't have killed me, the broken bones would have made it impossible to self-rescue. I had no cell service here, and no one was expecting to hear from me for about 3 days. It would have been likely that someone would find my frozen corpse several weeks later. I had rope from my hammock accessible to me. I tied a bowline knot in a rock so I could reach, used the carabiner on my belt and a belt loop, tied a munter hitch to the beaner, slowly got my arms out of the pack while I weighted the rope. I managed to turn myself around and free my pack while now over the side of the cliff fully. I threw my pack to the ground below and rappelled down. My rope was only 5 meters, so there was still a drop at the bottom, but only about 1.5 meters rather than around 6. I managed to get down uninjured. After having a pseudo-panic attack and having the adrenaline dump from survival, I then found a spot to climb up safely and rescue my rope. Keeping calm and thinking through the problem, while having the skills of knots saved my life. Knots to master in case you need them in an emergency: bowline, clove hitch, figure 8, and munter. Good. I mean, this whole video should be required viewing, not just for the algorithm, but there's genuinely great advice in all of this. For this particular one, this is definitely some advanced survival, but a bowline knot, all those things are super important. Left over right, right over left, simple square knot, little things like that could make a difference, but do you have a carabiner? Do you have a length of rope? It depends on the terrain, but certainly some advanced survival skills are great when you need it, so good to hear. I rehabbed aggressive dogs and learned how to act in a dog attack situation. If it's one dog, stay still, don't run, don't fight. Put your hands up so it doesn't grab your arms or nip your fingers, and don't give it any stimulus. If you run, it's a game. If you fight, it's a fight. Either way, you're going to lose. Be prepared to fight if you have to, because running, you'll die tired. Hit it hard, hit it fast, and get ready to have a really bad day. Then the day came. I was getting out of my car, and my neighbor's untrained pit bull, that he was walking without a leash, decided to charge me. I did all the things, and as he got up to me, he was confused because nothing was happening. It stopped and tried to goad me into doing something, leading to him trying to nip my leg. So I took the bag of Arizona iced tea cans I had just bought and swung like that shit downwards like a medieval flail. Cracked it right between the eyes and on top of the nose and backed it off. I'm not sure it even knew what just happened. And then the owner showed up, so who knows what would have happened. The most dangerous thing I usually do is drive. These tips are about 63% of my driving knowledge, and I do pretty good. Don't pass if it's a double yellow, but especially don't pass another car going over a hill or around a curve. Look before you change lanes. If your car engine is overheating, turn the heat on full blast. Maybe just older cars. Saved my ass in a traffic jam outside Nashville coming back from spring break in '01. Assume every container in the road is filled with nails, as in try not to run it over. Brake, don't swerve, unless you need to swerve. Then do what you gotta do. Not quite life-saving, but it sure felt like it at the time. I didn't realize I had heat exhaustion and got on a roller coaster. When my vision started going gray at the edges, I remembered the Mythbusters Blue Angels episode, where they talk about the full-body muscle clench thing that pilots have to do to counteract the G-forces pulling blood away from your brain. I did those clenches for the rest of the ride and managed to avoid passing out. Got off the ride and toddled off to a sheltered area to drink some water and cool off. Lessons about my heat tolerance were learned that day, but the pre-existing lesson about hook maneuvers meant I got to learn them while conscious and in private instead of from an inpatient EMT after they revived me. Saw a news article about what 3 words and thought it sounded really useful, so told my kids to make sure they had the app on their phones in case they ever needed me to pick them up and they didn't know where they were. Fell over and broke my ankle and had to use it to help the ambulance locate me. Rang my daughter to let her know what was going on, and the first thing she said was, "What's your 3 words?" Not exactly saved my life, but certainly saved time when I was sat in snow waiting for help. A bar in the bottom of a sliding glass door track to prevent it from opening. When I split from my ex, I moved in with an infant into a ground floor apartment with a sliding glass door. My dad asked my brother-in-law to cut a piece of wood to put into the bottom of the interior door track to prevent it from opening. Sure enough, when he showed up to kill me, that piece of wood saved my life. It kept him out and bought me time. Also, plenty of people heard him taking a crowbar to my front door, and no one else called for help. My neighbor saw him and recognized him, but didn't want to get in the business. When someone is trying to kill me, please get in my business. I'm much older and wiser now, and I will err on the side of safety and yours. I don't know if this actually saved my life, but somebody hit me on the highway while I was driving with cruise control on 75 miles per hour on a 70-mile-per-hour highway. Hit on my left passenger side, and my car spun out across 2 lanes of traffic and spun in full 2 circles, I believe. The entire time it was happening, I stared right at my steering wheel with my dad's voice in my head saying, "Ease into the turn, do not overcorrect, or try to go the other way." So, with my death grip on the steering wheel, I slowly went with the motion of the car, and we didn't flip over or anything. It was terrifying. I remember at some point seeing my dog in midair in the back seat. She had a seatbelt leash, thank God. Totaled my vehicle, yet the man who hit me somehow was able to stay on the road and got away with it. CPR is a big one. Don't just try to guess where the heart will be. To be sure where it is, you can move your hand up the side of their body. When you hit their armpit, move to the center. CPR is hard as shit to do, and if you're doing it in survival, chances are low. So don't be too hard on yourself if they don't survive. I'm trained in how to do CPR, and have done it a good few times now, and haven't had anyone survive yet. The most recent was a car crash, where the guy passed out at the wheel about 20 seconds before I got there. We had an ambulance there within 10 minutes and a defibrillator there within 2 minutes. It was what I described as the perfect scenario outside of a hospital environment, and the guy still didn't make it. Don't be a hero when doing CPR. Don't ask people to do things. Direct them. Shout at them if you have to. Person A, ring ambulance. Person B, watch what I'm doing and take over when I tell you to. Don't do it for more than a minute or so if other people are there to take over for you. You could take turns between you all. The worst case scenario in that situation is that they die, which they're already in the process of doing anyway. The guy I mentioned above, the last person I did it on, only had injuries caused by me breaking his ribs. He had no other injuries and dropped down dead. Everybody in, nobody out. River safety is no joke. My friend's dog jumped into a river and started to get swept away due to the increased current from flooding. My friend jumped into the river to rescue her dog. I started to jump in after her, heard this safety phrase in the back of my head, grabbed a branch and swung myself back onto land. There was a decent drop into the river. I ended up having to run down the shoreline a bit to catch up to them, and then hoisted both my friend and her dog out of the water. None of us would have been able to make it out had I have also jumped in. Pay attention to your gut and other animals if you're out and about. If you're walking in the woods or swimming and suddenly it is very quiet and there's no sign of any animals when there was before, something very bad is about to happen, either there to you or to the area that you're immediately in. When the world goes silent all of a sudden, you need to listen and find out why. Along those lines, if something feels off and your stomach is doing knots and your body is telling you that you're about to put yourself in serious harm or danger, you need to listen. It is much better to just say no and to be thought of as a coward than to die for doing something stupid when every muscle in your body already told you not to do it. Was at a store browsing. A few minutes later, I hear someone screaming for help. I have basic life-saving training. So I walk over to a family. The kid ended up choking on a damn candy. I don't blame the kids, but I do believe all parents should be mandated to take CPR and basic survival measures for their babies before they get to take them home from the hospital after birth. I stepped in, did the Heimlich, he spit out the candy, but till this day, I'm still get a little annoyed thinking about all the parents who have zero clue how to save their babies and children from choking. Choking can happen so easily to anyone, but especially children. Rattungasse. In case of a traffic jam on the German Autobahn, the cars in the left lane go as far to the left as possible. The cars in all the lanes to the right of the very left lane go as far to the right as possible. It doesn't matter if it's 2 or 6 lanes. That creates a passageway for police, fire trucks, and ambulances so they can get to potential accidents. My mom and I got into an accident that flipped and squashed the car. First responders were able to get my mom out, but I was stuck and bleeding heavily because my broken femur broke through the skin. Oof. Only because of everyone creating proper emergency lanes, the firefighters and the ambulance were with me fast enough to get me out and stop the bleeding. If that hadn't been the case, I might have lost a leg or died. I saved a baby's life once. He stuffed cotton from a broken pillow into his mouth. He coughed twice and it was muffled, so I checked on him and his face was purple, and he was no longer coughing or making any sound. So I flipped him over and pounded on his back, then started grabbing the cotton and pulling it out. He ended up vomiting everywhere before I could clear it, but it was enough and he vomited the rest out. I was only 20 and he was 8 months. I love that family, but quit just weeks later. His mom kept placing the ripped pillow back within reach, even after I told her he nearly died. And she was a freaking nurse. So to avoid watching a child die, I left. Still in touch with them today. My cousin and I were kidnapped by 2 guys, and they drove us up a mountain. When we realized that they were kidnapping us instead of taking us home, I whispered to my cousin that I will get out of the car on her side, then we run. Finally, up the mountain, they pulled into a house, and I got out on her side and yelled, "Run!" We ran our asses off. The guys started yelling, and they got back into the car, started after us, but I told her to run into the woods. This was at night, so we ran about 10 feet into the woods as we stopped and froze. They had their window down, driving really slow, trying to get us to come back. We were only 15. We ended up walking all the way home, having to run back into the woods when we heard their car. Finally, they gave up. A Mythbusters episode that showed how to protect your neck or head in the case of an accident might have saved my life. I was in a horrific car crash. Long story, but my ex was trying to murder-suicide after kidnapping me, and as I was waiting for the inevitable to happen, I remembered that episode. So I used my arms to protect and cushion my head and neck as much as possible. I did still break my lower spine, but my doctors told me that extra cushioning I provided, and the cushion from having landed on the one patch of grass in a big parking lot, very well may be why I didn't die or get paralyzed. I was told if you had a cramp in your leg accompanied by redness, it's a life-threatening blood clot, and to get emergency help immediately. My friend had been complaining for 2 days about a cramp in his leg, so I made him pull up his leg of his jeans, and his skin was bright red. I tried not to panic as I told him he needed immediate help. I was visiting and set to catch a train in 30 minutes, so he promised he'd go in. He did not go in, but he called NHS, and they were like, "Do not move, do not panic, keep your heart rate calm, we're sending someone right away." And it was then he realized I wasn't kidding. He made it in, and apparently it was really bad, and if he'd waited any longer it would have dislodged and he would have died. The doctor told him I'd saved his life. He reminds me of that from time to time too. I'm so glad I knew what the signs of a clot were. Stranger danger saved my butt. I was driving late at night in the countryside for a job, and a car with at least one passenger plus the driver pulled up real fast and real close behind me, flashing its lights. I know that a signal for help, but it was dark, and I was just a girlie on a lonely road at night. Anyway, I pulled over to the side. They stopped, got out of the car, and then I sped off. They followed, but they left real quick when we reached another car on the road. I don't know what they had in mind, but at that time of night, it couldn't have been anything good. Made it safely to my lodgings for the night, shaken, but alive. When my ex pushed me against the wall during a fight, everything in my body froze. When he left, a surge of memories, all telling me it'll only get worse after the first time, and he never gets better. I didn't let me have enough time to cool down or guess my decision. I grabbed my stuff and just left, leaving a note that it's over and why I left. I blocked him on everything, notified my friends and parents. Some time goes by, and I was told during a normal holiday get-together that he was serving time after knocking his wife out cold while drunk, that she fell into a ditch and passed away from freezing. That same thought about it never gets better ran through my brain again, but it felt gut-wrenching that if I didn't act that night or stayed one more night to give it a second chance, I could have been her. Swim horizontal to the shoreline when you're caught in a rip until you get out of it. I got caught in one while snorkeling with a snorkel mask that developed a leak. Fortunately, the algorithm in all its wisdom had given me a what to do when you're in a rip video while doom scrolling a few months ago. The waves battered me against the rocks a bit, so I was a little scratched up and embarrassed to have made a scene, but made it out fine. Good thing I had flippers to keep me afloat, too. About 30 years ago, I was at a restaurant, and for happy hour, sitting at a bar when a woman behind me yelled out, "Does anyone know the Heimlich maneuver? My boyfriend is dying." I turned around and saw a man less than 10 feet from me turning blue. Between his color and utter lack of sound coming from him, I knew he was definitely choking on something. I gave him a quick Heimlich thrust, and a piece of beef stroganoff shot out of his mouth and struck the glass wall of the restaurant with a reverberating thunk. This was immediately followed by the man's deep coughing and the woman's profuse thanks. About 6 years ago, I took my elderly father, who had come to live with me, to a suburban hospital for a suspected bladder infection, where after testing proved negative, he was released. A couple of days later, he seemed very weak and lethargic, so I brought him back. Once again, I spent several hours there as they inserted a catheter, took urine samples, and was examined by doctors. He tested negative and was sent home with me again. A visiting nurse who stopped by my home once a week saw him the next morning and told me she suspected he had a bladder infection. I recounted to her my 2 trips to the suburban hospital. She looked me in the eye and, with subtle emphasis on each word, encouraged me to go to a city hospital where staff are more experienced. I followed her advice and left immediately to a major city hospital where he was diagnosed with septicemia and was hospitalized for 5 weeks.